promised I'd never tell. But this secret is destroying me. I work the night shift at a roadside motel. It's not the kind of place you choose. It's the kind of place you end up when all the other doors close. The Riverside Motel is about 40 kilometers from any decent town, lost on a back road in Tennessee, where the fog clings to the road like a living thing and trucks roar past every half hour, rattling the front desk windows. I accepted this job 3 months after my divorce, not because I needed the money, although I did, but because I wanted to be alone. I wanted a place where nobody knew me, where nobody asked how I was doing, and I got exactly that. The motel has 18 rooms arranged in a U shape. The reception area is right in the center, with a frosted glass window overlooking the mostly empty parking lot. My shift runs from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. Monday through Thursday, rarely anyone shows up. Friday and Saturday, a few truck drivers, couples passing through, people who prefer not to give their full names. The routine is simple. Answer the phone, hand over keys, change bed linens if someone asks. The rest of the time I sit behind the counter, listening to the hum of the old refrigerator and the flickering of the fluorescent light in the hallway. The silence here has a texture. It's dense, heavy, as if the air were waiting for something. It was in the second week that I noticed something strange. I was reviewing the occupancy spreadsheet, something I do to pass the time, when I noticed there were only 17 rooms registered in the system. I counted again, 17, but outside, on the motel's facade, I could swear there were 18 doors. I got up, grabbed my flashlight, and went outside to check. The night was cold, with that kind of dampness that clings to your skin. I walked slowly down the outside corridor, counting the doors. 1, 2, 3, 17. And then I saw, in the farthest corner, almost hidden by the shadow of an old tree, there was a door with no number. The paint was peeling, the doorknob rusted, but the light above it was on. A weak yellow bulb, flickering as if it were about to burn out. I approached. The air around me felt colder. I placed my hand on the doorknob. It was icy, and tried to turn it. Locked. I went back to the reception and searched the system. No record of that room. No key on the panel. Nothing. As if it simply didn't exist. But the light remained on, and as I looked out the reception window, I had a distinct feeling that someone on the other side of that door was looking back at me. The first call took place on a Thursday at 3:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I looked at the digital clock on the wall when the phone rang. 3:17. The kind of time when the world seems to stand still, suspended between dawn and sunrise. There was no one staying there. The parking lot was empty. I was alone. The ringing was shrill, cutting through the silence like a blade. I answered on the third ring. Motel Beira Rio. Good evening. On the other end of the line, I heard only breathing, slow, controlled, like someone who had just climbed the stairs, but trying to disguise it. Hello? I insisted. And then the voice spoke. I need towels. It was a male voice, low, tired. But there was something wrong with it. Something familiar. Of course, I replied, picking up the pen. What's the room number? Silence. Just breathing again. Then, you know which one. My stomach clenched. I tried to keep my voice steady. Sir, I need the room number to... The room that doesn't have a number, Daniel. My name. He said my name. I felt my blood run cold. I looked around the reception area, as if someone might be watching me, listening to me. The windows reflected only darkness. How do you know my name? I asked, and my voice came out higher than I intended. Because I need towels, Daniel. Please. The call dropped. I stood there, holding the phone, listening to the busy tone echoing in my ear. My hand was trembling. I put the receiver back on the hook and took a deep breath, trying to think clearly. It could be a prank. Someone who knew my name because I've worked here for months, right? Maybe a long-time guest. Maybe someone who saw my name tag. But I don't wear a name tag. I opened the system again. No internal call log. No active lines. The system showed 0 occupied rooms. So where did the connection come from? I grabbed a bunch of towels from the cupboard, more out of reflex than conscious decision, and left the reception area. The air outside was even colder. The fog drifted across the asphalt like smoke. I could hear my own breathing. Too fast, too loud. I walked to the room without a number. The light above the door was still on. But now I could hear something. Running water. The muffled sound of a shower running, coming from inside. I approached slowly. The sound became clearer. It wasn't just water. It was footsteps. Wet, dragging footsteps, like someone walking barefoot on tiles. Knock on the door. Reception. I brought the towels. The sound of the water stopped immediately. The steps too. Absolute silence. I pressed my ear against the door. I could feel a slight vibration, as if something on the other side was breathing deeply. Waiting. "Is anyone there?" I whispered. And then I heard it. A voice. My voice, coming from inside the room. "Is anyone there?" It wasn't an echo. It was my voice, repeating the question exactly as I had asked it, with the same intonation, the same fear. I took a step back. The towels fell from my hands. The doorknob started turning on its own. I should have run. I should have gone back to the reception, locked the door, called someone, anyone, but I couldn't. I stood there, paralyzed, watching the doorknob turn slowly, hearing the metallic click of the lock opening. The door opened a few centimeters. There was no one on the other side, just darkness and heat. A damp, heavy heat, like the steam in a bathroom after a hot shower. It seeped through the crack in the door and touched my face, carrying a strange smell, cheap soap mixed with something older. Mold. Rot in disguise. "Hello?" My voice came out weak, hesitant. No response. I pushed the door open slowly. It slid open without resistance, its rusty hinges gliding with a low creak. The room was bathed in twilight, illuminated only by the light from the hallway behind me. I could see enough. A double bed, the blanket pulled halfway up, the pillow bearing the imprint of a recently rested head. The switched-off television reflected my distorted silhouette. I took another step inside. The heat was stifling. My clothes clung to my skin. My breathing became heavy, as if the air were too thick. I looked at the bed. The sheets were crumpled, as if someone had just gotten up, but there was no one there. I walked over to the bathroom. The door was ajar, and a dim light flickered inside. I pushed it open with my fingertips. The mirror above the sink was completely fogged up. Drops of water ran down the surface, drawing irregular vertical lines. The shower stall was closed, but the floor was wet. Puddles formed around the drain. Someone had bathed there. Recently. I approached the mirror. The steam was so thick I could barely see my reflection. I reached out and ran my fingers across the fogged surface, wiping away a vertical strip. And that's when I saw it. There was something written on the mirror, trembling letters, traced with a finger in the condensation, still fresh. "Are you here?" My heart raced. I turned abruptly, looking back, expecting to see someone. But the room remained empty. Only the sound of my accelerated breathing echoed off the bare walls. I looked at myself in the mirror again. The phrase was still there, the letters beginning to slowly run down with gravity. I raised my trembling hand and wiped another part of the glass, revealing more. Below the question, there was another line, shorter, more hurried. "I am." My stomach churned. I took a step back, stumbling on the bathroom door frame. I needed to get out of there. I needed... A sound froze me in place, coming from the hallway, from outside the room. Footsteps, slow, dragging, approaching. I turned my head toward the open door. The yellow light in the hallway flickered once, twice, and then I saw a shadow moving. A tall human silhouette walking toward me with stiff, mechanical movements. The figure stopped right at the entrance to the room. I couldn't see her face. The light was behind her, turning her into a dark, featureless blur, but her posture, the way she tilted her head, it was exactly how I look when I'm tired. "Who are you?" My voice came out hoarse. The figure did not respond. It just stood there, motionless, waiting. And then I heard it again. My own voice, coming from the silhouette. "Who are you?" The light flickered one last time. When he returned, the figure had disappeared. I ran. I ran out of the room, across the hallway, and didn't stop until I was back at reception. I locked the door with trembling hands, so much so that the key almost fell out. I leaned against the wall, breathless and sweating profusely. The phone rang. 3:17 in the morning. Again. I didn't answer the phone. I stood there, leaning against the reception wall, listening to the shrill ring cut through the silence. 1 ring, 2, 3, 4. On the 5th, my hand moved on its own. I picked up the phone and put it to my ear, but said nothing. I just listened, breathing, the same as before, slow, controlled. And then the voice. "Daniel, you didn't bring the towels." It was my voice, exactly my voice. The same deep tone, the same cadence, the same weariness that I carried in my words after hours awake. But I wasn't speaking. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper. Silence. And then, "You know who I am." The connection dropped again. I stood there, phone still in hand, trying to process it. My whole body was trembling. My mind was spinning, searching for a logical, rational explanation. Anything that made sense. A recording. It had to be a recording. Someone had recorded my voice and was... The phone rang again, at the same time. This time, I answered immediately. "What do you want?" I yelled. "The towels. Daniel, please." "I need the towels." There was desperation in my voice now. My voice, as if I were begging myself. "I'm not going back there," I replied, my voice breaking. "I'm not. You're already here." The line went silent, but it didn't disconnect. I could hear something in the background, a muffled sound, running water, and footsteps, wet footsteps, getting closer and closer to the phone. And then I heard my own breathing, coming from the other end of the line, heavy, gasping, as if I had just finished running. I hung up abruptly and threw the phone away. My hands were frozen, but my face burned. I looked out the reception window. The fog was thicker now, engulfing the parking lot, the trees, everything. But in the corner, almost invisible in the mist, I could see the yellow light above that door. She was blinking, as if she were calling me. I don't know what made me leave again. Maybe it was the need to prove to myself that none of it was real. Maybe it was something deeper. The feeling that if I didn't go back, something terrible would happen. Or maybe it already was. I picked up the flashlight and the towels I had dropped in the hallway. I walked slowly, each step weighing like lead. The fog brushed against my skin like cold fingers. When I reached the bedroom door, it was ajar. I pushed slowly. The room was different, darker. The warmth had vanished, replaced by a biting cold that immediately sent shivers down my spine. The bed was unmade now, the sheets thrown on the floor. The television was on, but without a signal, just that gray and white static, crackling softly. And on the floor, right in the middle of the room, there was a towel, wet, soaked, forming a dark puddle around it. I walked over to her, the beam of the flashlight flickering in my hand. I bent down and touched the fabric. It was icy, but it wasn't just water. It had a strange, viscous texture. I pulled my hand back and saw my fingers stained with something dark. Blood. No, it didn't smell like blood. It was something else. I looked up toward the bathroom. The door was closed now, but light was leaking from underneath it. A faint, flickering light. "Is anyone there?" I called, my voice echoing in the empty room. No response. I approached the door. I placed my hand on the doorknob. It was warm again. Very warm, as if someone had just held it. Shelter. The bathroom mirror was perfectly clean now. No fog, no steam. But there was something written on it. Not with condensation, with something more permanent, scraped into the surface of the glass, with enough force to scratch it. 3 words. Large, irregular, desperate letters. "I am you." My reflection stared back at me, but something was wrong. It didn't move when I moved. It just stood there, watching me, its eyes deep and empty. And then, slowly, it began to smile. It wasn't my smile. I took a step back. My reflection took a step forward. I stumbled out of the bathroom, tripped on the wet towel, and fell backward. The flashlight rolled away, its beam of light swirling around the room. And that's when I saw it. There was someone sitting on the bed, a silhouette, bent over, wet, head bowed, hair dripping dark water onto the ground. Slowly, very slowly, the figure raised its face. It was me. Not a distorted version, not a shadow. It was exactly me, wearing the same clothes, the same tired expression, the same empty eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. He looked at me and spoke in my voice. "You took too long." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't respond. The figure on the bed slowly rose, dripping water, or whatever it was, onto the floor. It walked over to me. It stopped right beside me. He bent down and whispered, "You never left here, Daniel. None of us ever left." I woke up in the reception area, sitting in the chair behind the counter, sunlight streaming through the windows. 7 in the morning, end of shift. I didn't remember coming back, but my clothes were wet, and my hands were scratched as if I had scraped something. I looked at the computer screen. The system showed an occupied room. The room without a number, and the guest's name was mine. I still work here. I can't leave. Every night, at 3:17, the phone rings. And every night, someone asks for towels. Sometimes I'm the one who answers. Sometimes I'm the one who calls. I no longer know which of the two I am, or if there is still a difference. If you are listening to this, don't accept jobs in roadside motels. Don't work alone at night. And if one day you hear your own voice calling you, don't answer, because maybe you're already on the other side. Before we continue, if you've ever felt like something was watching you in the dark, subscribe. You'll understand why by the end. Something happened to me, and to this day, I can't understand it. I work as a night receptionist at the Last Rest Motel on Route 47, halfway between nowhere and total oblivion. It's one of those places you glimpse out the car window and think, who the hell stops there? The answer is simple. Desperate people, people fleeing, or people who have no choice. I am the third type. My shift starts at 11 p.m. and goes until 11 a.m. 12 hours alone in a reception area that smells of old varnished wood, reheated coffee, and something I can't quite name, like mold mixed with old gasoline. The neon sign outside has been flashing vacancy since I arrived 3 months ago. They never fixed it. I guess they don't want to. In the first week, I learned the routine. Quick check-in, Hand over the key. Write it in the logbook. Simple as that. The book is under the counter, bound in cracked leather, its yellowed pages looking 100 years old. The owner said never to use the digital system. The book is tradition. It's always been this way. I found it strange, but I didn't question it. Night shift jobs pay extra precisely because people don't ask questions. It all started on a Wednesday, around 1:30 in the morning. A black Dodge Charger pulled up in front of the reception area. The engine shut off, but the driver remained inside for almost 5 minutes. I watched through the fogged-up window, trying to see if he would get out or not. Finally, the door opened. He was tall, thin, wearing a worn leather coat, disheveled hair, deep-set eyes. He entered slowly, as if each step required effort. "I need a room," he said. His voice was hoarse and tired. "Sure, how long?" "1 night." "Maybe 2. I picked up the logbook, opened it to the current page, and pushed it toward him, along with a blue ballpoint pen that always gets stuck in the book's spine. Full name, car license plate, and signature. He picked up the pen. He wrote slowly, "Rafael Sousa." I watched the ink touch the paper, and then it happened. The word began to run. It wasn't like wet ink. It was as if the paper was rejecting it. The letters slid down, blurred, turned into dark stains that disappeared in seconds. I blinked. I looked at him. He was staring at the book, confused. "Is the pen faulty?" he asked. "It must be," I replied too quickly. I grabbed another pen from the drawer. "Try again." He wrote again. "Rafael Sousa," the same thing. The ink ran. It disappeared. My stomach clenched, but I forced a smile. "You know what? Never mind. I'll write it down later. Room 7, second door on the left." I handed him the key. He took it without saying anything, left, and went straight to his room. As soon as his door closed, I went back to the book. I ran my finger over the page where he had written. It was dry, clean, as if nothing had been written there. I thought of humidity, old ink, damaged paper. I wrote his name by hand, in my own handwriting. Rafael Sousa, room 7, black Charger. The paint stayed. Perfect. 4 hours later, I heard the reception door open. I looked up, and there he was, Rafael Sousa. But he wasn't the same man. He was covered in dirt, deep scratches on his face. His shirt was torn. He was trembling. What happened?" I asked, standing up. He looked at me as if he didn't recognize me. I was in the room, and then I wasn't. I don't know where I went." "What do you mean? You don't know?" I opened the door. I went inside. I lay down on the bed, and when I blinked, I was outside, on the road, far from here, walking. I don't remember anything. My heart raced. "Do you want me to call someone? The police? An ambulance?" "No," he shouted. Then he took a deep breath. "No, just let me sign again. I need to sign again." I opened the book. I pushed it towards him. This time, when he wrote Rafael Sousa, the ink stayed, and he left without looking back. I spent the next 3 days trying to convince myself it had been a coincidence. Rafael was drunk, high, or simply lying. Strange people show up at roadside motels all the time. It wasn't my responsibility to understand their stories. But then it happened again. The following Monday, a woman arrived around 3 a.m. She was driving an old minivan, dented on the side. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun, and her eyes were red as if she had been crying all night. "I need a room." "Any room," he said, without looking at me. I followed protocol. I opened the book. I pushed the pen in. She wrote, "Linda Mercer." The ink started to run immediately. My blood ran cold. She looked at the page, frowning. "Is this normal?" "No, I replied before thinking. Then I corrected myself. I mean, the pen must be faulty. Let me write it down for you. I took the book back and wrote her name in my own handwriting. The ink stayed. I handed over the key to room 12. She left without saying anything else. 5 hours later, she returned. She was barefoot. The soles of her feet were bleeding. Her clothes were torn. Her eyes were wide. Empty. Where was I? She whispered. I couldn't reply. She approached the counter, trembling. I went into the room. I closed the door. And then I was walking on the road, miles from here. I don't remember leaving. I don't remember anything. Raphael's words echoed in my head. I was in the room, and then I wasn't. Do you want to sign again? I asked, my voice coming out weaker than I would have liked. She nodded. This time, when he wrote Linda Mercer, the ink stayed, and she left crying. I started writing everything down. I bought a cheap notebook at the gas station 15 kilometers away and started recording every detail: name, time, behavior, whether the ink stayed or not. I tested different pens: ballpoint, gel, fine point, permanent marker. It didn't matter. When the book rejected a name, it rejected it in any ink. I tried to understand the pattern. Common names? No. Long names? Also, no. People with a criminal record? Impossible to know. Then I realized something. All the names that failed had one thing in common. They were not remembered. I couldn't clearly remember Raphael's face, nor Linda's. It was as if, after they left, my memory of them began to fade. I knew they had been there, but the details disappeared. One night, when the motel was empty, I went down to the basement where the old files were kept. Dusty boxes, yellowed folders, piles of paper that no one had touched for decades. I found previous record books, dozens of them, some dating back to the 70s. I opened the oldest one. The pages were covered in dark stains. Names were violently crossed out. Desperate handwriting scribbled in the margins. He came back. He didn't remember me. She disappeared. The name disappeared. Don't let the book erase you. My breathing became heavy. The air in the basement was suffocating, dense, as if something were watching me. I ran back to the reception. I sat in the chair. I opened the current book. I flipped through the recent pages. And then I saw names erased, completely erased, as if they had never been written. But I remembered writing them down. I remembered the guests, vaguely, like shadows. And on the last page, something that took my breath away. An old note, written by someone else, in shaky handwriting. The book doesn't reject names. It chooses who stays and who disappears. I slammed the book shut. The reception lights flickered. Outside, the neon sign, Vaga, burst with a dry snap. And in the silence that followed, I heard something. Steps. Slow. Dragging. Coming from the bedroom hallway. But there was no one staying there that night. The footsteps stopped at the reception door. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the fogged-up glass door, hoping to see a silhouette, a shadow, anything. Nothing. Absolute silence. After what felt like an eternity, I forced myself to stand. I walked slowly to the door and pushed it open. It was locked from the inside, as I always leave it. I looked outside. The parking lot was empty. The cold wind dragged dry leaves across the cracked asphalt. No cars, no people. I went back to the counter. My hands trembled as I picked up the register book again. I needed to confirm. I needed to be sure I wasn't going crazy. I opened it to today's page. I looked at the guest list. There was only one name, Linda Mercer, room 12. But she had been gone for 3 days. I turned the pages. I looked for Rafael Sousa. I found the date. But where his name should have been, There was only a dark stain, irregular, like dried blood. My stomach churned. I closed the book. I took a deep breath. I tried to rationalize. You're tired. Night shifts ruin your perception. That's all. So I decided to do something I had never done before. I picked up a new pen. I opened the book to the next blank page, and I wrote my own name, my name. The ink touched the paper and began to run. No, 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 no. I tried again, slower this time. Each letter carefully formed. The ink slid. It smudged. It disappeared. I felt something icy run down my spine. No, I whispered. This isn't happening. I picked up another pen. I tried again, and again, and again. It was always the same thing. My name never appeared on the form. I dropped the pen. I pushed the book away. I leaned back in my chair, trying to control the panic rising in my throat. How long have I been here? The question came out of nowhere, and I didn't know the answer. 3 months, right? That's what I thought before. But what? When exactly did I start? What day was it? I tried to remember the interview, the first shift, the manager explaining the rules to me. The memories were blurred, fragmented, like old photographs left in the sun. I picked up my phone. I opened the messages. The last one was from my sister, from 2 weeks ago. Are you okay? You haven't replied in a while. I didn't remember reading that. I tried to type a reply. My fingers froze on the keys. What was I going to say? That I was okay. That I was... I looked at the reflection on the black screen of my cell phone. My face was there. But it was delayed. I moved my hand, and the reflection moved half a second later. I dropped my phone as if it were burning. I got up and went to the small mirror near the reception bathroom. I looked at myself. The reflection blinked after me. I stepped back. My heart was pounding in my chest. You're staying there too long. The words from the old note echoed in my head. I needed to leave. Now. I grabbed my keys, my jacket. I went to the door. But then I remembered I had left my notebook in the car. I went back to get it. No, wait. I didn't leave it in the car. It was in the drawer. I opened the drawer. It wasn't there. Where was he? I needed him. He had important information. I went to the car. I opened the door. I looked in the back seat. Nothing. I went back to the reception area. I looked under the counter. And then I realized I had forgotten why I was looking for it. What was I even looking for? I sat down in the chair. I looked at the open logbook in front of me. There was a new note. In my handwriting, I can't get out. Every time I try, I forget. I didn't remember writing that. I turned the pages back. I found old dates, years ago. And there, in the middle of a yellowed page, I found my name. Written, then crossed out, then erased, but still visible, just almost transparent. It was as if I were slowly disappearing. I closed my eyes. I tried to remember my face, my voice, my full name. The edges were fading. The reception door opened. A man walked in, gray sweater, backpack on his back. He looked at me as if I were a stranger. "Hey, do you work here?" he asked. "Yes," I replied automatically. "Great. I need a room." I picked up the logbook. I pushed it toward him. He wrote his name. The ink remained. And as I was handing over the key, I realized he hadn't asked me my name. Nobody ever asked. The man left with the key to room 9. The reception door closed behind him with a soft, almost gentle click. I stood there, staring at the open logbook in front of me. My name was there, almost invisible, like a fingerprint on frosted glass. How much time do I have? The question came, but the answer didn't. There was no answer, only the growing certainty that with each passing minute, I became less real. I tried to remember the last time I had left here. Not to go to the gas station or buy something, but to really leave, to go home, to see people, to exist outside of this place. I couldn't remember where my house was. I couldn't remember if I had a house. Panic came like a wave. I took a deep breath. I needed to act. I needed to do something before what? Before I disappear. Before I become just another name erased from the book. Just another guest who returns hurt, confused, with no memory. I picked up the logbook with both hands and walked to the small sink in the reception bathroom. I turned on the tap. I placed the book under the water. Nothing happened. The water ran down the leather, onto the pages, but they didn't get wet, as if there were an invisible film protecting it. I took a lighter from the drawer. I lit it. I brought the flame close to the edge of the book. The flame flickered. It died, as if something had extinguished it. I tried again. Same thing. "Why don't you burn it?" I yelled, throwing the book on the floor. "Why?" It fell open. The pages turned by themselves, sheet after sheet, too fast to be the wind. They stopped at a specific page. There it was, my name, written in my handwriting. But this time, it was clearer, as if it were being rebuilt. Below it, a line I hadn't seen before. Employee. Permanent shift. My blood ran cold. Permanent. I stepped back. I leaned against the wall. I slid down to the floor. "I don't want to stay," I whispered. "I can't stay." But deep down, a part of me already knew the truth. I was already getting there. There was no way out. There was no choice. The book had chosen me. Not to be erased like the guests, but to remain, to record, to bear witness, to be a part of it. I heard a sound. A car engine. Headlights illuminated the reception window. I stood up, staggering. I picked up the book from the floor. I put it back on the counter. The door opened. A woman entered. Young. Maybe 25 years old. Tired eyes. Small suitcase in her hand. "Hi," she said. "I need a room. Just for one night." "Sure," I replied on autopilot. I opened the book. I pushed it towards her. She picked up the pen. She wrote, "Sarah Vance." The ink ran. It smudged. It disappeared. She looked at the page, confused. "Is this normal?" "Yes," I lied. My voice sounded distant. "Let me write it down for you." I wrote her name. The ink stayed on. I handed over the key to room 4. She picked it up, but before leaving, she looked at me, really looked, as if she were trying to see me. Are you okay?" he asked. No one had ever asked that before. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out, because I didn't know the answer. She waited a few more seconds, then she left. I stayed there, alone again. I looked at the book, at the pages filled with names, some clear, some faded, some blurred. I picked up the pen. I opened it to a blank page, and I wrote, "If you're reading this, if you found this book, don't try to understand it. Don't try to burn it. Just leave. Leave before it realizes you've been here too long." My hand was trembling as I wrote, "My name is..." I stopped. I looked at what I had written. I tried to remember. I tried to fill in the space, but I couldn't, because I didn't remember anymore. I couldn't remember my name. I didn't recognize my face. I didn't remember anything before this. All I could remember was the book, the shifts, the arriving guests, the names that disappear. And now, I was a part of it. I closed the book slowly. Outside, the neon sign flashed. Vaga. Once, twice, 3 times. And then it lit up again. Steady, steady, as if it had never burned. The door opened. Another guest. Another face I wouldn't be able to remember tomorrow. "Hi," he said. "I need a room." I smiled. I don't know why. Maybe because it was what I was supposed to do. "Sure. How long?" "Just one night." I opened the book. I pushed it towards him. And while he was writing, I looked out the window, at the empty road, at the dark desert beyond the motel lights, at the place I had come from. If I even came from anywhere. Maybe I've always been here. Maybe I always will be. The guest finished signing. I handed over the key. He left. I looked at the book. My name was no longer there, not even as a shadow. I had disappeared, but I was still here, and it always would be. The door opened again. Another person, another name, another record. And I smiled, because now I understood. The book doesn't erase anyone. He simply decides who remembers and who forgets. And I had forgotten everything. Less of that. Please comment on which city you are hearing this from. Some stories are closer to home than they should be. Something happened to me, and to this day, I can't understand it. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that for 7 months, I worked as a night receptionist at the Restway Motel off Interstate 40 in southern Missouri. One of those forgotten places by the roadside with neon lights flashing vacancy, even when half the rooms are empty. I took the job after my divorce. I needed silence, routine, something that didn't require me to pretend to be okay. The shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Alone, always alone. Most nights were simple. Quick check-ins for tired truckers, couples on the run, lost travelers. I'd hand over the key, point to the room, and head back to reception. Reheated coffee, cigarettes by the back door, spreadsheets that nobody read. The kind of job where you disappear inside without realizing it. The motel had 18 rooms arranged in a horseshoe shape. Built in the 1970s, with faded brown carpet and wallpaper with a faux velvet texture. It smelled of mold and cheap disinfectant. But it worked. People slept, paid, and left. Up to rooms 7, 11, and 15. These were different, I understood in the second week. A guest from room 7 came down at 2 in the morning, pale, asking to change rooms. He said he couldn't hear anything in there, not even the cars on the road, not even the television at maximum volume. "It's like being underwater," he murmured. I thought it was an exaggeration, strong soundproofing, perhaps. Some motels do this in their cheaper rooms to cut costs related to noise complaints. But then came the tickets. The first one was folded in 4, left on the reception desk. Trembling handwriting, blue pen. "Please don't turn off the hallway light." No signature, no room number. Just that. I put it in my pocket and forgot about it. 2 days later, another note. Same handwriting, same request. Then one more, and another. Always the same hurried handwriting. Always the same poorly disguised fear in the crooked words. I started to notice. They all came from guests staying in rooms 7, 11, or 15. Always those 3. I started avoiding them. When someone asked for a room, I'd offer any other number. A room 8 is more spacious. Room 12 has better cable TV. Little lies to avoid having to clean another ticket from the counter. But some nights I had no choice. The motel filled up. Not too much, but enough. And I needed to put someone there. They always left early. Without breakfast. Without a word. They would just return the key. Avoid my gaze. And leave too quickly. Then, one Tuesday at 3:17 a.m., I heard my name, whispered, coming from room 15. It was empty. Have you ever tried to ignore something you know is wrong? I'm not talking about ordinary fear. I'm talking about that feeling that something is watching you. But when you look, there's nothing there. And yet, he knows. That's what I started doing. Ignore. After that early morning, when I heard my name coming from an empty room, I spent 3 whole days repeating to myself that it had been the wind, or old pipes, or accumulated fatigue. I worked alone for 8 hours straight, 5 nights a week. Of course, my mind would play tricks on me, but the tickets continued to arrive. Every week, at least 2, sometimes 3, always the same message, slightly different words. Please leave the light on. Don't turn off the lights in the hallway. I need to see the door. I started keeping them in a drawer at reception. I don't know why. Maybe as proof that he wasn't making it up. Maybe because, deep down, I needed to believe that other people felt the same way. That one. The temperature near rooms 7, 11, and 15 was always lower. Not by much, maybe 2 or 3 degrees, but noticeable. I would go upstairs with extra towels and blankets, and every time I passed that stretch of the hallway, the air felt thick, heavy, as if something were standing there, waiting for me to look away. I never looked. The motel's security cameras were old and grainy, but they worked. One Thursday, I decided to review the recordings from the previous night. I wanted to understand why the guest in room 11 had left at 4:42 a.m. without checking out or collecting his deposit. I watched the recording 3 times. He left the room at 4:40 a.m., standing in the hallway, staring intently at the closed door behind him. No suitcase, no coat, just standing there, as if he'd forgotten something important. 2 full minutes. Then he turned and walked straight for the exit, without haste, without running, but also without hesitating. The way he walked, it was like someone who had just understood something terrible. I started avoiding the hallways after 2 a.m. I'd stay in the reception area, pretending to be busy with paperwork, listening to soft music on my phone to fill the silence. But the Restway motel was small, and noise travels, or I should travel. Because one night, at 3:34 a.m., a couple started arguing in room 6. Loud voices, door slamming, the kind of commotion that wakes everyone up. I waited for someone to complain. No one did. I went down the hall to ask for silence. I walked past room 7. Absolute silence. I pressed my ear against the door. Nothing. Not even the creaking of the bed. Not even breathing. As if the room were empty, but the car was parked outside. The key hadn't been returned. I knocked lightly. "Is everything all right in there?" Nothing. I hit harder. And then I heard it. Steps, slow, dragging, coming from within from the room, but not towards the door, towards the back, as if someone were walking away, towards the wall. I rested my forehead against the cold wood and closed my eyes. Tiredness, just pure tiredness. The footsteps stopped, and in the silence that followed, I heard something that shouldn't have been possible. One breath, on the other side of the door, right at ear level, as if someone were leaning against the wall, listening back. I went back to the reception area without looking back. I sat in the chair, my hands trembling, trying to light a cigarette that fell twice before I managed to catch it. The next morning, the guest from room 7 checked out. He didn't speak. He just left the key on the counter and left. But before crossing the threshold, he turned to me and said, "You heard that too, didn't you?" I didn't answer. He gave a weak, tired smile. It's best not to answer when they call. And he left. There are things we know we shouldn't investigate. Doors we shouldn't open. Questions that are better left unanswered. But curiosity is stronger than fear. It always has been. The following Tuesday, at 3:17 I heard my name for the second time. It wasn't loud, it wasn't shouted, it was whispered, softly, almost affectionately, coming from the hallway. From room 15, it was empty. I checked the register 3 times. No check-in, no reservation. The key was hanging on the board behind me. The room had been officially vacant since Saturday, but my name resonated clearly. Ryan. Guided. Because up until that moment, I had never told my name to anyone there. I was wearing a fake name tag. Mike, said the plastic label pinned to my shirt. Always Mike, never Ryan. I stood behind the counter, my hands gripping the edge of the wood, trying to decide if I had actually heard it or if I was finally losing my sanity. Silence returned, heavy, suffocating. And then, again, Ryan. Are you there? The voice was mine, not similar, not imitating, era my. It was as if I were in room 15, calling to myself. My stomach churned. Cold sweat trickled down the back of my neck. Every instinct screamed at me to get out of there, lock the reception desk, call someone, tone one, but my feet moved on their own. I needed to know. The hallway was lit by the dim, yellowish light that we never turned off. I walked slowly, stepping on the worn carpet that muffled my steps. The temperature dropped as soon as I passed room 10. The air became humid, thick, as if I were inside a refrigerator that had been running for too long. Room 15 was in the left corner, last door before the emergency exit. When I got closer, I realized the door was ajar, just a crack, 5 centimeters, maybe. Enough to see that it was dark inside, completely dark. I put my hand in my pocket, searching for my cell phone to use the flashlight. My fingers were shaking so much that I almost dropped the device. Ryan, come in. The voice came from inside the room, low, calm, like a gentle invitation from someone who has known you for years. I pushed the door open slowly. It creaked, a sharp, shrill sound that cut through the silence like a fingernail on a chalkboard. The darkness inside was wrong. It wasn't the absence of light. It was presence darkness, as if it had weight, texture, as if it were alive. I turned on my cell phone flashlight. The beam of light illuminated the unmade bed, the nightstand, the switched-off TV, everything normal. But then the light flickered, and I heard it, breathing. It didn't come from a specific place. It came from all the places, the walls, the ceiling, the floor. A slow, deep, rhythmic breath, as if the room itself were alive. I took a step back. The door closed by itself. Click. I locked it from the inside. I tried turning the doorknob. It wouldn't budge. I pushed it with my shoulder. Nothing. The wood didn't budge an inch. You came. The voice was behind me now. I turned slowly, the light from my phone flickering in my hand. There was nothing there, but something he was. I could feel it. The weight of a gaze. The presence of a body occupying space unseen. The air grew even colder. My breath turned to mist. You heard. So you belong. The words came again, but now from several places at once. From the right. From the left. From above. As if dozens of voices were speaking in unison, and they were all mine. I leaned my back against the door, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. My phone light started flashing. Low battery. No, not now. Everyone who listens, stays. And then, in the darkness ahead of me, something moved. It wasn't a shadow. It was the absence of everything. A void that moved, slowly, deliberately, towards me. The light went out. I don't know how long I was in the dark. Seconds, minutes, hours. Time doesn't exist when you can't breathe properly. Leaning against the door, I felt the emptiness approaching. It wasn't physical. There was no touch, no extreme heat or cold. It was a presence, like when someone is standing right behind you without making a sound, but he knows that is there. I tried to scream. My throat wouldn't obey. I tried to punch the door. My arms were too heavy. And then, right beside me, so close I could feel the air move, I heard it again. Why did you come? My voice, my intonation, but it wasn't me speaking. I closed my eyes tightly. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. You know that's true. And that's when everything changed. Images began to invade my mind. They weren't my memories. They were fragments, pieces of conversations, scenes I shouldn't know about. I saw the man from room 7, sitting on the edge of the bed, crying softly, holding a wedding ring that was no longer his. I heard what he whispered into the void. I didn't want it to end like this. I saw the woman from room 11, lying down, staring at the ceiling, repeating a name that no one else remembered. You promised me. You promised you'd come back. I saw the couple from room 15, arguing, shouting, and then silence. A silence so profound it swallowed everything. And then I understood. The rooms did not soundproof. They kept. Every word spoken there, every whispered despair, every tear shed in secret. Everything remained trapped within the walls, in the air, in the thick silence that enveloped those 3 damned rooms. And when the silence accumulated too much, it gained a voice. Now you understand. My phone's light came back on, weak, blinking. I lit up the room. It was empty. But in the mirror above the sink, I saw my reflection, and he was not alone. There were silhouettes behind me, dozens, maybe hundreds, indistinct faces, shapeless bodies, nothing more. Presence. Everyone stopped. Everyone was looking at me, and everyone was whispering. I couldn't understand the words. There were too many, overlapping, but the tone was clear. Despair. The door handle turned by itself. Click. The door opened. Run. I ran down the hallway, tripped on the rug, bumped my shoulder against the wall, but I didn't stop. I got to the reception desk, locked the door, threw myself into a chair, my breathing erratic, my hands trembling so much I could barely hold the cigarette. The rest of the night was silent, but it wasn't the silence of before. It was the silence that observe. I continued working at the Restway Motel. I know, it sounds crazy, but where would I go? Night jobs don't come around often. And what would I say? I quit because the walls talked to me. So I stayed. I avoid rooms 7, 11, and 15. I'll never put guests there again. When someone insists, I lie. Plumbing problems. Maintenance pending. Anything. But sometimes, in the quietest hours of the morning, I can still hear it. Footsteps in the empty hallway. Whispers coming from closed doors. And my name, my real name, being called by a voice that is mine, but is not me. I learned not to respond. I learned not to look in mirrors for too long. Because sometimes, when I look, my mouth is moving, forming words that I'm not saying, whispers that aren't mine. And now I understand what the guest meant that morning. It's best not to answer when they call. Because when you answer, you become part of what remains. The tickets keep turning up. Every week. Always the same requests. Always the same trembling handwriting. But now, sometimes, the lyrics are mine. If you listen to the end, you're already one of us. Subscribe so you're not alone when the next whisper comes.